This is the Just Live podcast with Dan and Suzie Potter, episode 65.
Do you give dignity?
In this episode, we're going to talk about how we can honor others with dignity.
We begin in 22 seconds.
Live life, see the good days in it, just live. Live life, see the good days, see the good days. Follow your potential. And live life, see the good days in it. Thrive.
Your life is a remarkable story, an adventure that only you can create.
We exist to motivate and equip you to live fully alive.
Welcome to Just Live podcast. In this episode, we're going to look at dignity and how we can bestow it on others.
I can't believe it, but this is episode 65. We have gone a long way, and we're in a series right now where we're looking at some really important things in life. Awe or transcendence, meaning, dignity is today. And I think sometimes we don't realize, or I don't realize, how important it is to give dignity to others.
Help us understand, what is dignity?
I think dignity is honor. It is setting a person in a place of respect, a place where, well, you've noticed them and noticed them for good. You've allowed them to be important, to be of value, to be in the image of God.
I remember when I first got exposed to the whole concept of dignity. We went down to India, the country of India, and Megan Morris, one of our third culture kids, was down there working, and we were there for a Teen Street conference. And Megan was taking us around and kind of getting us a feel of the culture. We also had to get some outfits, Indian outfits, to also...
They matched as well.
Yeah, to also allow us to be culturally relevant and to esteem the culture and their clothes, which we absolutely loved. But I remember we were on the street and there was a Dalit person. So this is a person of the lowest caste in a caste system, a hierarchy of who's the most important in this culture.
They're actually called the untouchables.
They were called the untouchables. And Megan said, look at them in their eye, and more importantly, touch them. They're untouchables. So when you touch them, you give them dignity.
Now understand that this person, if even their shadow falls on someone of the upper caste
system,
they can beat them because their shadow fell on them. They are like worse than dogs in that culture.
Yeah, and we love people and we esteem people, and we don't have that caste system or that culture or anything that we knew of. And so when we got to a person, she kind of helped us understand how to do it appropriately.
And what did people, or how did people respond when you touched them?
Yeah, they were shocked. I'm a white girl, so I represent somebody who's probably of a higher caste system because the lower caste had darker and darker skin generally. And so I just went up to a person who was actually sitting on the street, and I think Megan gave me something to give to them. I gave it to them, and I held their hand. I looked in their eyes, and I gave them a big smile.
Now, who couldn't love that smile?
I mean, that's very kind, but the response was shocking. It was obviously something that they were not used to. And shout out to you, Megan, for help us understand giving dignity. And she said this gives them dignity. And so we tried every time we were with people or meeting people on the street to not go so fast as to miss them, but also to touch them, touch the untouchables, and give them dignity.
I remember one time we were in South Africa, and when it really hit me, the importance of dignity was we went into this orphanage, and all the babies in this orphanage had AIDS. A few years earlier, we had been in South Africa, and they were talking about, plans for this land and schools and malls, and that same place was full of graves.
Yeah.
And it was at a really hard
who had
time
died of AIDS.
With the AIDS. Yeah. And these children that were in this orphanage, it was actually a waiting area until they died. We just walked among them. And I remember walking up to this one crib, There was a little girl in there, and she was probably 3 to 6 months from dying. They said that she was 2.5 years old. And they looked at me and they said, her name is Grace. And her eyes just looked into my eyes like, what are you going to do? And it was interesting in this area. None of the babies were crying because there wasn't enough staff to pick them up. So crying meant nothing to them. It was silent and it was weird.
So the workers said they did everything they could to just give them food. So they would hold the bottles for the babies to drink, but they had so many babies to take care of, they couldn't hold them.
So I remember saying to one of the nurses in charge, could I pick her up? And she said, well, you can, but I just want you to know that she's never been held in her whole life. She's 2.5 years old and she's never been held in her life. And I remember picking her up and she just stared at me and I drew her close and she didn't know what to do. She didn't know to put her arms around me. She just stayed there.
She was very, very thin.
Very thin. And I just, maybe a half hour, maybe an hour, I just held her because I thought I may be the only person that ever holds her in her whole life.
And I was sitting there, we were out on a blanket in the sun holding her. And I said to Dan, could I hold her too? And he was like, I don't think I can give her up. And you did share. And I also got to hold her. And that similar thing Dan was feeling, it was like, we get to give her the gift of dignity, of holding her, of seeing her as a person, as valuing her, even though her life is probably going to be very, very short.
When we left her, still this day I get emotional because she's been gone a long time, and but I can't get her out of my mind that I may have been the only person, and Susie the only person ever to honor her, to respect her, simply by to hold her. And not too long after that, we were in Germany and we were speaking at a conference. And I just had to tell the story. I had to tell a story of an orphanage filled with children that are dying, that no one has time to hold. And there was 2 girls that came up after the meeting and said, could we go? We have 2 months of a break. Could we go to South Africa?
Tell us where this place is. We want to go and hold babies.
And hold babies for 2 months. And I told them, and they went.
So cool.
And all they were doing was giving dignity. And we have a chance every day. It doesn't have to be in India or South Africa. It's around our corner every single day. They may be young. I remember the first time I felt dignity. There was a man, a businessman, and his name was Jack Marion. And Jack knew that I knew how to do magic, but I never performed live, ever. Just for family events and things like this. And you'll know that I love to perform. I love to do magic. And I was probably 9 or 10 years old. And I get this call from Jack Marion. And he said, I would like to book you to do a magic show. What? I mean, it was like someone just gave me the right to have my own show in Vegas, and it was 10 minutes. At the
age of 9.
It was 10 minutes long. And he was going to pay me $25, and I practiced and I got in front of, it was probably 200 people there for the dinner show. And I performed like I never performed before. And what Jack did is he gave me dignity. He honored me. He gave me respect, and he triggered something in me that I want to do this again and again. And again, he sparked imagination that I could spend my life standing in front of people, performing and sharing with them. And it changed my life.
Yeah. And you also did the math. Dan was not good at math, but that made you go into math mode, didn't you?
I mean, my friends at that time were working and making like $1 an hour. I was making $2.50 a minute as a magician. Whoa, we're going to do this for life.
Isn't that interesting? Dignity really sparks things in people. In our Fully Alive Revolution, just today at the time of this recording, we have an amazing Monday, and every amazing Monday we meet together and we're talking through some of our themes. And today our theme was throwing out a lifeline for people. And one of our questions was, who can you throw a lifeline to? And what keeps you from doing it? And it really made me think about one of the things that I love to do, and I do it very easily, honestly, without even thinking about it. As many of you know, no person is a stranger to me. It's easy for me to talk to anybody, no matter who they are. I don't see classes. I don't see color. I don't see race. I don't see things that most other people see. I see people. And I think that's a gift that God has given me. But one of the types of people that I see often, and I see things in them, is people who are struggling with their identity, maybe their self-esteem, because I have struggled with that in the past. And sometimes lots of days I struggle with that. And so when I see somebody who is struggling with that, I've also journeyed with a lot of girls, especially, and some guys who struggle with that. When I see it, it's so easy for me to give them dignity, give them a lifeline, shall we say, give them a line that gives them life, which is what dignity really does, and just speak the truth over them. You look great. Wow, you're amazing. Thank you for showing up. To give some kind of an encouraging word, just speak the truth over them. Sometimes that is the way we can give dignity to people around us.
Yeah, a few years ago, we were working with an organization, and as they were orientating us to work and to train within their organization, one of the leaders said something I couldn't believe. Even to this day, I can't believe it. They said, now it's very important, because we're a community, that you don't treat anyone as special.
And we both looked at each other.
We looked at each other like,
"Do we
what
hear
are you
that
talking
from-"
about? And they said, no, we don't want anyone to be treated as special. So we would really appreciate it while you're here. You treated everyone as if they're not special. What? I could not.
Nope.
I
Sorry,
thought they
can't
were
do
just
that.
joking. I thought they were just joking. And I thought to myself, this is crazy. So I leaned forward to this leader and I says, how about this instead? How about if my role here is to treat everyone as special? And there was a pause, because I literally thought this leader was going to say, yeah, that's really a good idea. And this leader actually said, no, please treat everyone as if they're not special. And I want you to know something. I can't do that. I simply cannot do that, because I believe to dishonor someone, to disrespect someone, is one of the worst things we can do. We live in a climate right now, especially in America, but around the world, that we find it totally okay to disrespect someone of a different view. Oh, they're from across the aisle. They have a different view. They're from a different church. They're from a different faith. They live in another country. So I can freely say anything I want about them. Well, actually, you can't. That's disrespectful. That does not honor them. What if we, you listening here and us sitting here, what if we choose every day to make everyone feel special?
To give them dignity and honor.
Because it isn't any more spiritual to make everyone feel like they don't matter. I was reading the Bible about dignity. Several times it talks about dignity and honor and respect, but there's a couple that I find fascinating. In Exodus chapter 28, verse 2, it says, make sacred garments for your brother Aaron. It's God is talking to Moses. Make sacred garments for your brother Aaron to give him dignity and honor.
Wow. So it's
Now,
okay to give
Moses,
dignity and honor.
and it's something you have to give.
Yeah.
And then there's a
We
verse
can't-
down later.
You know, one thing that we've been talking about is we've been thinking about dignity. Dignity is not something you can give to yourself. You can maybe honor yourself, but dignity is something that has to be bestowed, as we understand it, has to be bestowed from one person to the other.
Yeah, you have to hear it about yourself.
You have to experience it.
And it's okay. In Exodus chapter 28, verse 40, make tunics and sashes and caps. Imagine that. We're talking a fashion statement in the Bible here. Make tunics and sashes and caps for Aaron's sons to give them dignity and honor. That is huge. In Proverbs, when it's talking about wisdom, it says she is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days that are to come. But it also talks about Job, and Job had his dignity taken from him. And I think we always have a choice of one or the other. We can bestow dignity. We can lay dignity on someone. We can make them feel like they are important. They are in the image of God, and I recognize that. Or we could steal that away.
I think of Jesus in the Bible and just a few stories about how he treated people and gave them dignity. One of the famous ones is Zacchaeus, this tax collector. He was up in the tree. People were trying to ignore him because he did not ignore them. He stole from them. And Jesus said, Zacchaeus, come down. I'm going to your house today.
Cha-ching.
Jesus also talked with women. He talked to people of the lower spaces.
Samaritans, those Samaritans.
Yeah, those Samaritans. And Jesus saw people, those who were sick, that others passed by, even his disciples passed by or said, be quiet. And Jesus gave them dignity. He looked at them. He touched them. He healed them. He spoke to them. He identified them as a person and gave them dignity.
So I just want to ask you, in your world, who are you giving dignity to? Or I may have to ask this as well. Who are you taking dignity from?
Nope, I hope that's not the case.
If you're having conversations about the news broadcasts and saying how bad someone is, and you're going on and on about stealing away their dignity, we can say things that we believe are true, but to actually withhold dignity, this is whoever it is, they are made in the image of God. And we need to bestow dignity upon them as a human, as someone created as a beautiful thing. Now, people make bad choices. We can talk about bad choices, but to vilify a person, there's no place for that. Yesterday, Susie and I were walking through our park, and we came across this lady who is brand new to America, brand new, and she doesn't speak our language. And I know some people who would be saying, well, if they're going to be in America, they better speak English. Well, you know what? She can't.
Not yet.
But you know what we can do? We can help her learn it.
We can give her dignity by seeing her. And I asked the people she was with, like, what is appropriate in your culture? Should I shake her hand, or is it okay if I hug her? And they talked back and forth in their language. And they said, well, normally you wouldn't actually give a hug, but she says it's okay to give a hug. And so I just reached out, and she fell into my arms.
She didn't let go.
And she wouldn't let go. She just laid her head on my shoulder, and she just gripped me. And, it's so cool that we can give dignity. I didn't even need words because she couldn't understand my language, and I couldn't understand hers yet. But there's a lot of ways we can give dignity or communicate without using our words.
And it's interesting. Susie has invited her to her watercolor class, that she can at least do some watercolor.
Hey, yeah, I can illustrate that. I had a job working as a nurse in hospice. And that is one of the ways that I believe I was able to give the most dignity consistently. So if you know hospice, it's end of life care, people who have stopped some kind of life-giving treatment, or they have an incurable disease. And so they're in the process of dying. Usually it's 6 months or less. And most of the time, the family has decided to take them home and give them dignity, give them the opportunity to be at home and among their people and to be comfortable. And so I was able to go into so many homes and help families learn how to take care of the patients in order to give them dignity and to give them quality of life in a comfortable environment, surroundings, for as long as they were able to live. And many times I would go into those places and train them, or it was in the process of a person dying, and many times I would have to pronounce them dead. I had permission from the governmental systems to do that, but to give them a process of dying in dignity in the way that they have chosen, that they specified they would like to live until they no longer could live.
So I want you to take a moment and just think. Do you remember a time when someone did not give you dignity?
How did it feel?
Do you remember it? Maybe it was in school. Maybe it was that teacher. Maybe it was the bully. Maybe it was someone that you worked for. Maybe
Or
it was
someone
a
you
parent,
worked with.
or an uncle, or an aunt. Maybe it was someone in church. Maybe there was a leader that for some reason they didn't give you dignity. You don't want to pass that on. I just want to encourage you. If you are going to be a person that lives fully alive, if you are going to be a person that just lives, it means that you are bestowing dignity on others, on all others. Because you can't give dignity just to one and make another feel undignified. It is a whole. It is a lifestyle. It is a value. And I think in the day we live, we need to get back to the place that we say, I today am going to give value by honoring other people.
Yeah. So here we are at the end of this podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you can identify some of the ways that you are able to give dignity. Maybe that's throwing a lifeline to somebody, by acknowledging them, by noticing them, by looking at them, by speaking to them, by helping just encourage them. There's so many
maybe
ways.
Just a hug.
Yeah, there's so many ways that you can give dignity. What if you were willing to be generous with what you've been given and throw a lifeline out, a lifeline of dignity, of honor, of people that you come across? Maybe you know them, maybe you don't know them, and give the gift of dignity.
Jesus said, I have come that you may have life. And it's our desire for ourselves, and hopefully for you, that wherever you go, you will show up in that space that whoever the they is, will have life and have it to the full. And may you live fully alive as you love your life, your world, and your God. My name's Dan.
My name is Susie.
Together
we are Doozy. Live fully and love fully. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, and by the way, you're amazing.